proceeding to our first panel. As a foreigner, my knowledge of American politics mostly comes from the TV show The West Wing. And on that show, I think you know where I'm getting at. I mean, we all know that the chief of staff of the White House is supposed to be somebody who's smarter than the president. So that's why I'm really excited about our next panel. We have the first chief of staff of the Bill Clinton's White House, chairman of the McLarty Associates, Mr. McLarty here. And sitting next to him on each side, we have a veteran U.S. Foreign Service, former Deputy Chief of Mission at the U.S. Embassy to China, Mr. David Rank. And we have the chairman of the Annenberg-Dreier Commission and a former House Rules Committee Chairman, Mr. David Dreier. So I'm going to just hand out to Mr. Dreier, and you guys can proceed to the discussion, or maybe do a little more in-depth introduction of yourselves.
谢谢你，你好，Mr. Ambassador, and to all the distinguished guests, what a great honor it is to be here. I want to begin by recognizing some of my special guests who are here, not just some of my former staff members who are here, but I have at the kids' table here, I describe it, my very, very good friend of many, many years, who serves as the chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations and the chairman of the National Committee on U.S.-China Relations, and the first woman to be Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, and the third woman to serve in the presidential cabinet. And most important, she was my candidate for Vice President of the United States. I wrote her name in on the ballot as my candidate for Vice President. And so I'd like to recognize Ambassador Carla Hills, who is here. And sitting next to Ambassador Hills is the only person who has served as both Director of the Central Intelligence Agency and Director of the FBI. Those are two entities that are occasionally in the news now that you may be familiar with. There's only one human being who has headed both of those organizations, and it's my friend who is here with his wife is right now in India and Bhutan, and so he said to me yesterday when I invited him that his daughter Drew is babysitting him, and that is my very, very good friend, Judge William Webster. Judge Webster. And sitting next to Drew is one of our nation's finest lawyers. And I say that because he's kept me out of trouble whenever I've needed him. So that's why he's one of our finest lawyers. And I worked with him when I was in the Congress and not seen him in a long time. And we've reconnected through a mutual friend in California. And so I'm very happy to recognize Mr. Bob Bennett. So I would like to begin by just saying what an honor it is to be with these two very, very distinguished gentlemen. Mack McLarty is someone who, to me, epitomizes the notion of public service. And I say that because he was a very successful businessman in the energy business. And then his lifelong friend, Bill Clinton, chose to run for President of the United States. And he came forward and served as his chief of staff. We had the opportunity to get to work together during that period of time. But the thing that really tied us together was when we worked on an issue that was so key for Ambassador Carla Hills, who negotiated the North American Free Trade Agreement. And interestingly enough, this coming December 8th is going to be the 25th anniversary of President Bill Clinton's signing of the legislation that implemented the North American Free Trade Agreement. And Carla and I testified exactly 5 years ago right now on the 20th anniversary for the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And Mack McLarty has become a leader in so many issues, but we have worked on, as I said, international trade has been a high priority, and he also has done a great deal of work in the China field. And so he serves along with John Huntsman as the co-chair of the commission that I founded with the Annenberg Foundation, and I'm very, very pleased to be able to join and have him here. So, Mr. McLarty, and give him a round of applause. Dave Rank has has had a very, very stellar career as one of our nation's top diplomats. And we know, Mr. Ambassador, as you do very well, that the single most important bilateral relationship on this planet is the relationship between the People's Republic of China and the United States of America. And Dave Rank, in his last position before he left, and there's been a lot of attention focused on why he left, served as the Deputy Chief of Mission, number one, right behind the ambassador, in the U.S. Embassy in Beijing. And so we're very, very pleased to welcome Dave Rank here. So I have the privilege of representing Los Angeles, California for a third of a century here in the United States Congress. And 6 years ago, as I was preparing to leave, having worked on China issues virtually my entire time here, having been introduced by both Henry Kissinger, who you will see in the movie, and Richard Nixon, who helped formulate my views on the relationship between our two countries as we prepare to mark the 40th anniversary of the diplomatic relations. I was preparing to leave, and I decided to follow the directive of James Madison, who said that you should serve and then go home and live with the laws that are passed, and also the very famous Roman statesman Cincinnatus, who in 438 BC, after 2 reigns, said that he was going back to the plow. So back to the farm is what Cincinnatus decided he was going to do. So I decided I was going back to Hollywood. So my buddy Bill Mundell called me, so I decided not to go back to the plow, but I said, I'll make a movie. And so that was the next natural step for me. Bill Mundell called me, and to me, the movie that you are about to see today is his creation. Bill Mundell conceived of this, and we were told by the director last night at dinner, Malcolm Clark, in 2010, 8 years ago, he thought of the notion of saying, we need to do everything that we can to enhance the relationship between our two countries. We all know the areas of disagreement. I mean, human rights and the South China Sea, which was mentioned by the ambassador, of course, intellectual property issues, espionage, all of these things are in the media with great regularity. And we decided that we needed to focus on some of the myths that exist in China about the United States and myths that exist in the United States about China. And so when Bill Mundell, the very prescient Bill Mundell, said to me that I want you to come and serve as a co-executive producer, I decided it would turn me into sort of a poor man's Al Gore when it came to making documentaries. And so that's sort of the role that I feel that I'm playing now, having been part of this. I believe, again, that this is the most important relationship, and I believe that this movie has the potential to be transformational. And I should tell you that it is going to be opening this coming Friday, November 2nd, in both Los Angeles and in New York. And in early December, it will be breaking a world record. It will be the first documentary movie for its opening to open in 2,000 theaters in China, beginning in early December. And so the message of this movie is such an important one. And so as we look at this critical bilateral relationship, what I would like to do is ask my friend Mack McLarty to offer some remarks about his experience in dealing with this, and of course what he sees as the future of our relationship.
Well, Mr. Chairman, first of all, it's a delight and an honor to be with you, and thank you for clearly your passion and commitment to this film with Bill Mundell. Captain Rank, it's great to be with you. Thank you for your service to our country. Ambassador Shui, it's an honor to be with you tonight. The remarks were eloquent, thoughtful, framed our discussion, more importantly, the movie in just a perfect manner. And as David has already noted, I have some not only distinguished friends that you recognize, but dear friends and mentors. Just has meant so much to me. So it's a great honor to be here. And Mr. Ambassador, I think you can come back to National Press Club anytime you would like. David, I think you said it just right in your opening comments. The U.S.-China relationship suggests to me is a critically important one that we need to get right. And if we don't, perhaps not too much else matters. It is at the very central point of being able to move forward in this dramatic, changing, transforming world, where you can literally hear the tectonic plates of history shifting. And we have a period, as the Ambassador, I think, appropriately noted, that suggests some discontinuity in this long-standing, sustained U.S.-China relationship that all of us and many of you here tonight have had the privilege, the opportunity to be a part of. I will always remember Ambassador Stapleton Roy, a figure known by many of you here, if not all of you, briefing President Clinton on his first meeting with John Juman in Seattle. It was a pivotal moment, and I think, David, it showed that both leaders were somewhat reserved, stuck to their talking points at that meeting, but subsequently they got to know each other, developed a personal relationship, a level of trust, a level of understanding. And sure, there were moments of disagreement, competition, even some tension. But an ability to manage those moments, manage those relationships, not to be succumbed by fear, lack of understanding, maybe even a touch of stubbornness, that we all have from time to time, but to manage what we could to get that relationship right going forward. Finally, I would say from a personal standpoint, our older son, as Dave and I have talked earlier, lived and worked in China for over 7 years in our family automotive endeavors, which is now a fourth generation endeavor. And so seeing China through his eyes, working with 3,000 colleagues, Chinese people that worked with us in our leaderships there in 11 cities around China, including Ulaanbaatar, which is a pretty long way to go, I might add, brought it home in a very personal way. So I think at the very central part of it, we have some moments now in terms of trade, in terms of security, that we need to look at how we can balance properly. And I think this movie does insert, David, as you so thoughtfully said, a perspective at this moment that is needed. I'm delighted to be here. I'm honored to be here with both of you.
Thank you very much for that, Mac. And I'll basically throw the same to you, Dave.
Well, I have to start off by saying, I was kind of surprised to find myself at a table with my sworn enemy.
Yeah.
With my sworn enemy. I'm from Chicago. I'm a Chicago Cubs fan, and I find myself sitting at a table with someone from St. Louis.
Yes, okay, that's Bill Webster.
But Ambassador Tsui, this is for you, and I think you will sympathize that being a Chicago Cubs fan is actually a very good preparation for dealing with U.S.-China relations. Because it teaches you...
You won after 108 years, you know.
It teaches you pain, right, and suffering.
For 108 years.
Perseverance, and optimism, hope, and taking a long-term perspective. So I come to the business of U.S.-China relations from that perspective, that it is we are destined to have a relationship, and I think we're also destined to have a difficult relationship. And I think to be surprised with where we are today means you haven't been watching the history of U.S.-China relations. And I'm not talking the details of the day-to-day ups and downs, and certainly there have been more downs than ups lately in the last 18 months or so. But to expect a relationship between the two largest, most consequential countries in the world today, and frankly in the world of any foreseeable future that you can lay out, and to think that there isn't going to be tension between us is unrealistic. And so I think I think we should go back to welcoming the challenges, and particularly as diplomats, it's job security, but to welcome the challenges that managing the difficult, complicated, multifaceted relationship that the U.S.-China, the Beijing-Washington relationship presents. You know, I think about what was accomplished in the Obama administration and what was left to accomplish in the Obama administration. There was an awful lot of frustration with what wasn't accomplished on commercial issues and a number of other things. And Ambassador Toy, I'm sure you can come up with a list on the Chinese side. But to see what was accomplished and could only have been accomplished by U.S.-China cooperation on climate, on non-proliferation, on global human health, and on the range of areas that if it were not for the United States and China sitting down together and figuring out, okay, what are we going to do about this? You know, we share a distinctly finite globe, and if the two largest countries in the world can't figure out what we're going to do, then what's the prospect in the long term? So I think there are a lot of really tough issues out there. Again, we shouldn't be afraid of difficult problems. We also shouldn't be afraid of solving difficult problems. And that has been, I think, one of the criticisms of the U.S.-China relationship is we have been at times bogged down in discussion and really need to focus on the issues before us. But we know what the issues before us are. So the challenge is for the people in this room to go that next step.
Well, thank you for that, David. Let me just raise something that I bet there are very few people in this room who are aware of this. It's something that I've been working on for the last 5 years. I serve as a trustee of the California Institute of Technology, Caltech, and we had our trustee retreat this weekend. And there is a project that is called the 30-meter telescope, known as TMT. You're familiar with it, Mr. Ambassador? I should tell you that the 30-meter telescope, how many people know this, is a joint venture among China, India, Japan, Canada, and the California Institute of Technology and the University of California, with basically support from the federal government. Not taxpayer dollar support, but support. We provided financing. The reason I point to this is that the 30-meter telescope is going to have the power that is 81 times greater than any telescope that exists. And one of my rocket scientist fellow trustees said to me this weekend when we were at the Caltech retreat, we are going to be discovering life off of this earth, within this universe. And he said the 30-meter telescope will play a very critical role in that discovery. Not many people know that the People's Republic of China and India and Japan and Canada and the United States are working together on this. The reason I raise that is that there are so many very, very important areas of agreement. I want to say just one thing about the movie that I think is very important. People ask the question. They ask me right now. They ask Billy Mundell. So is this movie pro-China? Is this movie pro-U.S.? And I always say, no, this movie is pro-U.S.-China relationship. That's what this movie is about. That's really the driving force behind it. It's about enhancing the relationship between our two countries. And another thing, there's been a lot of criticism. This movie was financed, the production of it, all U.S. dollars. The producer, Bill Mundell, from whom you're going to hear shortly, and I are obviously Americans. Malcolm Clark, the director, is a Brit. And no outside money outside of this country was paid in the production of this. Now, obviously, when you're going to be opening in 2,000 theaters in China, we have Chinese involvement now. But on the production of it itself, I think it's very important to underscore that, again, to shatter a myth that may exist about this movie. So I just use these couple of points to recognize that, and Jim Baker will say, you'll see it in the movie, he talks about the importance of exactly what both Mack and Dave have just said so well, and that is managing our differences. We need to figure out how to manage our differences and at the same time capitalize on great things like the development of the 30-meter telescope, which is going to play a role in changing the entire world. So with that, I think we want to see the movie. The movie is 92 minutes long, and we don't want to keep everyone too late. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I want to introduce my very, very good friend and colleague, Bill Mundell, who has been, as I said, the most prescient one of all. He's the one who made this call to me and thought of this idea 8 years ago in 2010, and he has been one of my great friends over 35 years, and he's taken me under his wing when I followed the Madison-Cincinnatus directive and went back to work in California. So with that, I'd like to introduce my friend Bill Mundell.